In today's video, I wanted to talk about the value in revisiting text. I feel like rereading books and rewatching things is something that many people don't enjoy and they don't see the significance in because if you already know what's going to happen, then what's the point? But I do think we can get a lot of value from revisiting things. Firstly, I would like to point out that rereading text can be especially appealing to individuals who are character-driven readers rather than plot-driven. Knowing the type of reader you are can help you decide whether or not rereading books is something you want to incorporate in your journey towards becoming a better reader. I tend to fall in love with characters rather than what happens in the story itself because I have a desire to understand human beings as a whole and how they navigate the problems of life. And so I genuinely love re-experiencing literature that impacted me deeply. I would also like to note that not all books are worth rereading. For some books, one read is more than enough, and that's fine. Generally, I like for some time to pass before I revisit a text because it makes the entire experience more exciting for me and I am able to read it with new eyes. Typically, I wait at least a year before I have any desire to read that book again. I do also reread nonfiction books, but not in the same way that I do fiction books. With nonfiction books, the first read is usually from start to finish, not skipping a page, but subsequent reads include fragmented encounters with passages that are relevant to what I'm attempting to learn at the moment, nothing more. With fiction books, I like to reread them from beginning to end. So now let's go over the benefits of rereading books. The first time you go over a text, you are so focused on creating a storyline of the events of the book that many stylistic choices and devices that the author utilizes can be overlooked. The purpose of reading a book for the first time is to figure out what's happening and formulate an idea of the purpose of the text. Whereas once an idea of the purpose of the text is formed, you are better able to analyze the characters and themes of the text. Insignificant encounters suddenly become significant because now you know where the story is taking you. A blasé comment in a conversation becomes the building block for a decision that the character makes down the line. Also, the events of your personal life have an effect on how you read. Depending on what you are personally going through at any point in time, different elements of the book will stick out to you. For example, a character you ignored during your first read might suddenly grab your focus the second time around because you are now encountering a similar problem. The last thing I will say, and a big reason for why I enjoy rereading books, is because of nostalgia and pure enjoyment. There are characters and stories I just wish to spend more time with, and thankfully, memory is faulty enough that in a way I am able to re-experience these events and emotions all over again. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the book that I'm currently rereading because it's amazing and wow, I have a lot of changed thoughts and feelings the second time around. I don't remember feeling this strongly about certain parts of the book the first time I read it, and so I'm really glad that I'm rereading it. So the book is We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. It was one of my favorite books from 2022, and I just really wanted to tackle it again. I believe you could classify this book as a psychological thriller. The book is written from the perspective of a mom, and she's writing these letters to her estranged husband. She has a son, Kevin, and basically Kevin is responsible for a school massacre. And you see the mom tackle feelings of guilt, and a lot of the book revolves around nature versus nurture. Could she have done something differently that would have prevented this horrific events from occurring? And also it tackles ideas revolving motherhood. And motherhood is a very difficult subject to talk about. I think oftentimes, or across many different cultures, there's this idea that women and girls, they just know how to be mothers. It's something innate. But a lot of the times, moms make a lot of mistakes along the way. And being a mother is not an easy job, or it's not as easy as it seems. It's not just something that you know. The character herself is very unlikable. What's interesting to me is that the first time I read this book, I remember feeling a lot of empathy and sympathy for the main character. I didn't think she was a good person, but I didn't think she was that bad of a person either. But the second time that I'm reading this, I find that I dislike her a lot more than I did the first time. I'm 30% into the book, and so maybe my feelings towards her will change. Why I felt like this book was worth reading is because, for one, the language that's used is very difficult, at least for me. My vocabulary is not as strong as that of the books. And so I remember reading it for the first time and just constantly having to look up what certain words meant. And I'm still doing that to a lesser degree, but I'm still doing that the second time that I'm reading the book. I think you could almost say that the book is overwritten, but I do think that there's a purpose to that. And I think it stays true to the character and the ways in which she processes things. Like, it makes sense to me that a character like that would write in the way that she's writing these letters. But with that being said, the difficulty of the vocabulary and certain descriptions, I think, made it so that I couldn't get everything that I wanted out of just one read. And I really did need to revisit this book.